Good evening, Dan Rather with the CBS Evening News. A whole new dimension today to the building battle over Bork, the court, and the Reagan record on civil rights. President Reagan had to mount a defense against public criticism from United States Supreme Court Justice Thurgood Marshall. Bill Plant reports on the back and forth between the justice and the president.
Supreme Court Justice Thurgood Marshall, the only black on the court, has publicly slammed President Reagan's civil rights record. Justice Marshall made the highly unusual criticism in an interview with columnist Carl Rowan, assessing the impact of recent presidents on American blacks.
What about Ronald Reagan?
The bottom.
The bottom?
Honestly. I think he's down with Hoover. And that group, you know. Wilson, well, he didn't have a chance.
But Mr. Reagan has long been under attack for his administration's civil rights record. In 1982, the Justice Department tried to grant tax-exempt status to segregated schools. Civil rights groups charged the administration has tried to weaken the Voting Rights Act, affirmative action rulings, and fair housing laws, and that it has made a joke of the Civil Rights Commission.
There's no question that the Reagan administration has compiled the worst civil rights record of any administration in more than half a century.
Assistant Attorney General Brad Reynolds, himself often criticized by civil rights groups, said the administration had met the test on civil rights and shot back at Justice Marshall.
The thing that is wonderful about this country is that we are not monolithic, that all blacks don't think the same way Justice Marshall does, just as all whites don't think the same way that Brad Reynolds does.
On Capitol Hill, angry reaction to Justice Marshall from some Republicans.
If he is not satisfied with interpreting the law, then he ought to get off and run for Congress and have a part in making the law.
The criticism has upset the White House, said spokesman Fitzwater. We have to be a little disgruntled that he would choose to make a political statement. And in fact, there's few things that raise President Reagan's temperature as quickly as the charge that he's insensitive to racial injustice. Bill Plant, CBS News, the White House.
Congress is back at work today, ready for battle over the Bork nomination to the Supreme Court, and Phil Jones reports that's just for openers in the coming test of wills and skills between the President and Congress for control of the national agenda.
The leaves are already starting to turn, and even Mother Nature was sending a signal to the politicians who returned today that time is running out as Congress confronts heated issues from a controversial Supreme Court nominee to budget deadlock.
We're 3 weeks away from the end of the fiscal year, and when you think of not one appropriation bill being passed by the Congress, I think that's outrageous.
Congress also has been unable to deal with the deficit, but the Democrats who are in control have already run campaign commercials blaming the president.
Mr. President, it's your deficit. So let's stop the talk, Mr. President, and face facts. Let's work together for our future.
What do the Democrats want from the president? New taxes to reduce the deficit.
I don't know what goes through Ronald Reagan's mind. I just know that it's a waste if he doesn't get energized about doing something about our deficit.
After a month break and touching bases with voters back home, the lawmakers find themselves under unusually heavy pressure mounting over the nomination of Judge Robert Bork to the Supreme Court. As senators on the Judiciary Committee are studying Bork's past, opponents are attempting to defeat Bork by portraying him as a conservative extremist who would be a judicial activist and change the course of the court. Trade legislation is also considered a must as constituent pressure is heavy to send a bill saving American jobs to the White House. President Reagan is threatening veto warfare on trade legislation and other expensive Democratic initiatives.
I don't want a veto strategy, but if it should come, then I think we have the votes to override on most things.
After months of embarrassing revelations in the Iran-Contra scandal, and with a new Central American peace plan on the table, the administration has not decided whether to ask for more Contra aid. This promises to be one of the most contentious congressional finishes in years, with even the president's supporters admitting times have changed for Ronald Reagan.
I don't see a lot of legislation bearing Ronald Reagan's name on it going through this Congress in the next 15 months.
When the Senate went Democratic, along with the House of Representatives, I think it polarized the Congress and the White House into a partisan confrontation that has made governance much more difficult.
Even some of the president's strongest supporters were complaining today. As one Republican leader put it, the only thing on the president's agenda is the Bork nomination and no new taxes. And he said, that's not enough. Phil Jones, CBS News, Capitol Hill.
The government today announced its second biggest bailout of a bank in history. The Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation said it has put together a package worth almost $1 billion to rescue the faltering First City Bank Corporation of Houston. Federal officials today talked up their latest big drug bust, and Robert Shackney reports on the case of out-dealing the dealers, as well as the debate over what the real impact may be on drug trafficking.
It was the latest in a series of highly publicized announcements by the Attorney General to try to prove that the war on drugs is working. Undercover agents working inside a Colombian drug ring, he said, had engineered the seizure of 70 tons of marijuana, over a ton of cocaine, and 29 arrests.
By penetrating the cartels and engaging in business relationships with the cartels, they were really able to put a large operation out of business.
Meese released surveillance tapes showing federal agents posing as drug middlemen. They were the crew on this ship carrying a marijuana cargo to Texas, and the warehousemen packaging and shipping drugs to dealers in 5 cities. It ended this past week with arrests and seizures of all the drugs. It is at least the 3rd time in 4 months that Meese has personally announced a big drug bust. He insists they're making a difference.
It is more costly and it is more difficult for the drug traffickers to operate in the United States than ever before.
It's another administration spectacular.
Critics see more public relations than evidence of a slowdown in drug traffic, and note that the administration has tried to cut the drug program's budget.
The question that we have to ask of the Attorney General is, as a result of these arrests and seizures, does that mean that it's going to be 1 ounce less of drugs available to our youth and to our adults? And the answer, of course, is no.
The Attorney General says he has no figures on whether the highly publicized seizures have made a difference in the drug supply. Congressional investigators say that for all the seizures, 80% or more of smuggled drugs from overseas are still getting through. Robert Shackney, CBS News, Washington.
High-profile drug busts are one federal crackdown strategy. Correspondent Peter Van Sant tonight investigates another controversial police anti-drug tactic, the stopping and searching of people who fit a profile.
Okay, gentlemen, you're under arrest for violating the Georgia controlled substance.
A drug bust on a Georgia interstate after troopers pull over a suspicious vehicle. Cocaine is found in the trunk. Across the state, another blue light special, another bust.
Cocaine.
Drug arrests on the nation's highways are at record levels as state troopers, using a secret profile developed by the Drug Enforcement Administration, zero in on alleged drug traffickers. But there is controversy. Across the country, state troopers are pulling over innocent people who are not breaking the law, but who fit the profile of a drug smuggler in the way they look and the way they drive. Critics say the tactic is unconstitutional.
The problem is it causes the state police to pull over many innocent citizens, more innocent citizens than the guilty ones. They are harassed, kept on the roadside, and their rights are violated.
To prove his point, Trichter cruises southern highways in a car that matches the drug profile. They drive at the speed limit, and with video cameras rolling, wait to see if they're pulled over. The wait is often a short one.
If you're driving a rental vehicle, if you have Texas or Florida plates, if you are a minority figure, and you're scrupulously following the traffic laws, you're liable to get stopped.
But many state troopers say the inconvenience is a small price to pay in the war on drugs.
I think we need the drug court profile to be upheld in the court system, and for the purpose of deterring the major flow of drugs we have exiting our state.
16 states now have special patrolmen who specialize in spotting drug runners on the nation's highways. Arrests are up, but so too is the concern that innocent people are being caught in the dragnet. Peter Van Sant, CBS News, Atlanta.
Straight ahead tonight on the CBS Evening News, foreign students arriving in Moscow find out their first test is for the AIDS virus. Cashing in on Gary Hart, Donna Rice launches a campaign of her own today. Bruce Morton will tell us about that. And cashing in on the Pope. Bernard Goldberg reports that when it comes to profiting from the pontiff, unfortunately nothing is sacred.
We've been kidding ourselves.
In trying to get all the fiber recommended by the National Cancer Institute, people added fruit, vegetables, and cereal to their diets. Unfortunately, some added the wrong cereal. You see, unlike Kellogg's All Bran, 99% of other cereals don't provide the additional amount of fiber recommended. 99%. Why settle for a fraction of the fiber you can get
We were kidding ourselves.
when there's Kellogg's All-Bran?
Fixing this water damage will cost $1,200. Could I have prevented it?
You could with Thompson's Water Seal.
This water damage is going to run $750. What would have stopped it?
Prevent water damage with Thompson's Water Seal. Simply brush Thompson's on wood, brick, or concrete and it penetrates to form a barrier water can't get past even when driven by 98-mile-per-hour winds.
This time I'm going to protect my new deck with Thompson's Water Seal. A great defense against repair expense.
A friend told me about Metamucil. It worked, but it was so gritty.
Now there's great-tasting Citracel. Let's compare. Both have fiber for regularity, but Metamucil is gritty, so it won't all go through the strainer. Citracel mixes completely. Its special fiber pours right through. And Citracel's every bit as effective as Metamucil. Citracel. Great taste, no grit.
In New Orleans today, 9 schools were closed and some 800 people fled their homes after a railroad tank car carrying a deadly and explosive chemical caught fire. Firefighters trained hoses on the car in an effort to cool it down and divert an explosion. Officials said the chemical is not toxic when it is burning. No immediate word on what caused the 34,000 gallons of chemical to catch fire in New Orleans. Surgeon General C. Everett Koop today told the Presidential Commission on AIDS that the moral, ethical, and racial issues involved in the fight against the killer disease are as difficult as the scientific and medical problems involved. And there were angry reminders for the Commission that some critics suspect the Reagan administration's commitment to the anti-AIDS campaign. CBS News medical correspondent Susan Spencer has been looking into that.
The Presidential Commission on AIDS convened its first formal meeting amid tight security, determined not to be disturbed by demonstrators 13 floors below.
Act up! Fight back! Fight AIDS!
If you want people to undertake a major effort like the space effort, you appoint amateurs, I can expect the rocket will blow up, and that's pretty much what I expect of this commission.
Activists and researchers alike have charged that some commission members are either uninformed or hopelessly biased. Chief targets Penny Pullen, an Illinois legislator widely quoted as saying that some homosexuals practice blood terrorism by donating infected blood. Dr. Corey Servas, publisher of the Saturday Evening Post, which runs a mobile testing service.
If you have any risk, don't go to the blood bank. Come here.
Dr. Servas's operation is under fire for not providing adequate counseling. And Dr. Teresa Crenshaw, a California sex therapist who has talked about keeping children with AIDS out of school and the potential danger from kissing.
It's a time for extra caution, as you mentioned, rather than for playing chicken with this disease to see how much we can get away with sexually.
The scientific facts are there, and she's a crank. There are a couple of other cranks on this commission.
But the commissioners insist they go into this project with open minds. They spent the day learning what efforts are underway and hearing from somewhat defensive federal officials.
The constant criticism that this government is not doing enough is unfair and unwarranted.
But like it or not, the Presidential Commission now begins its study. Its report not due until June of 1988. Administration critics question what it will mean even then. Susan Spencer, CBS News, Washington.
Inside the Soviet Union, the Russians are just beginning to get alarmed about AIDS, but as Wyatt Andrews reports, much of the alarm is directed outward at foreigners.
For the 1,000 foreign students who just arrived for classes at Moscow's Pushkin Institute, it was a jarring welcome. Submit to a test for AIDS, the Soviets said, or turn right around and go home.
What they originally said is you're having an AIDS test on Monday, you know, and you just got nothing to do. If you refuse, then you get sent home.
Under a Soviet decree passed just 2 weeks ago, AIDS tests are now mandatory for a variety of Soviet citizens, including blood donors and homosexuals. But because 80 of the 102 AIDS cases the Soviets admit to involve foreigners, AIDS tests are now also required of foreign students. The decree has led to a flurry of sensitive diplomatic discussions worthy of the United Nations. The British, for example, want Soviet assurances test results will be confidential.
If one of us ends up being positive, then the whole group will know. And really, it should be in strict confidence, shouldn't it?
At the American embassy, the concern is the sanitary handling of needles. The delicate question being, can the Americans bring in their own disposable needles for the test to avoid the kind of needle the Soviets use?
My greatest concern was that they would have sterility in terms of the needles.
The sanitary needle question is a serious one. The Soviets themselves recognized the problem on a recent call-in talk show.
Here's a question that's just come in. When will our ambulances begin to carry disposable needles, since we're afraid now to call an ambulance because of the dirt and danger of getting AIDS?
No one is suggesting the Soviets are being unreasonable in the student discussions, but there's no question they are being strict. In just the last few months, the Soviets have dropped the effort to paint AIDS as a disease invented by the Pentagon and have begun to saturate the airwaves and news media with straightforward information. Still, the Soviet perception is that AIDS remains a foreign problem and that they must resist the invasion. Wyatt Andrews, CBS News, Moscow.
Iraq said today was a day of revenge against Iran, and more than 100 Iraqi warplanes pounded Iranian cities, factories, and oil installations. Iran said 105 civilians were killed and 3 Iraqi planes were shot down. Philippine President Corazon Aquino set the stage for a government shakeup during the day. At her request, all 26 of her cabinet members offered to resign. She would not say which of the resignations she might accept. Aquino's critics have been pressing her to get rid of several key top aides, and the pressure has intensified since that bloody coup attempt 2 weeks ago.
It took 2,000 years, but a revolutionary discovery is changing the way men think about coloring their gray hair. It's called Just for Men, from the leader in men's hair coloring. Simply apply Just for Men, and in 5 minutes, shampoo out. Your gray is blended away, leaving your natural-looking color. 5 minutes. Here, look at me. Just for Men leaves your hair looking healthy and fuller, and it won't fade or wash out. Just for Men, in the men's hair care section.
If you've got a taste for something exciting, which drink has the blend of flavors you're looking for?
Del Monte, pineapple mandarin.
Del Monte Fruit Blends, because a blend of fruits can mean more taste. More fruit, more taste.
Phil, you're overreacting. We've got 30 people out there. Okay, I made a crude remark about your breath. I apologize.
There's no mouthwash. I looked.
I bought something new.
It's cool, crisp, like nothing you've ever tasted.
Whoa! It's Scope. Taste it.
Introducing Scope Peppermint. Yes, peppermint. Like original mint, it kills germs like medicine-y mouthwash, and your breath's icy clean.
Whoa!
Exactly, Phil. Whoa.
Now the power of Scope comes in peppermint, too.
Where does it hurt?
Here.
For indigestion, heartburn, and gas, nobody does as much as Malox Plus. Dose for dose, it neutralizes more than any regular strength antacid and dissolves gas. Nobody does as much as Malox Plus.
A follow-up to the air safety story that correspondent Peter Van Sant first broke on this broadcast in May. Accusations of widespread cheating among students at the nation's only air traffic controller school. Tonight, Van Sant has obtained a Department of Transportation Inspector General's report, and it confirms student cheating for years on both written tests and radar training exercises. The FAA now says new tests will make cheating tougher. Critics say students may cheat for several more months and graduate to the nation's control towers while these new tests are phased in. Ford Motor Company tonight announced a recall of 4.3 million automobiles, trucks, and vans. That's the largest auto industry recall since 1981. The recall involves 1986 to 1988 model Fords and Mercurys. They may have defects that could cause engine or fuel system fires. Ford says the recall follows 222 engine fire reports. Well, the hype and the hoopla, and yes, in some cases, the hypocrisy over Gary Hart's confession of adultery and latest declaration of non-candidacy shifted today. Chief political correspondent Bruce Morton reports how the spotlight went from Hart's new career, talking up his brand of ideas, to Donna Rice's new career, selling herself and a line of clothes.
The star of our show, and star today, Donna Rice.
Yes, Donna Rice. You remember Gary Hart, the monkey business. Donna Rice introducing a new line of sportswear. In marketing, timing is everything. Last night, the ex-candidate was saying he's still an ex-candidate.
I'm not running for president. I have no plans to run for president.
Hart confessed error, but declined to name names.
Have I been absolutely and totally faithful to my wife? I regret to say the answer is no. But I also am never going to answer any specific questions about any individual.
Today, Rice, the biggest unnamed name, launched her new career, making TV ads for a line of clothes called No Excuses.
I have a lot to say. 15 seconds? Not enough time.
How would you describe this kind of advertising? Glad you asked.
This is a gutsy, highly creative approach that very few companies are willing to take.
How would you describe this kind of advertising?
I realize that there will probably be more than a few words about my association with No Excuses, but all I can say is that I'm very comfortable with the name.
We've been talking about sin here this evening, I guess, is what it gets down to, not crime, but sin. And bad judgment.
Well, it depends on your point of view. Hart spent the day quietly in New York, lunch with fellow non-candidates Governors Cuomo of New York and Clinton of Arkansas. Further uptown, the motto was, get yours while the getting's good.
It's provided me with a unique opportunity to utilize my experience as a commercial actress.
I make no excuses. I only wear them.
Right. Bruce Morton, CBS News, New York.
The ABC News interview with Gary Hart was done by Ted Koppel. Chris Evert saw the streak end today. Laurie McNeil of Houston upset Evert in the U.S. Open Tennis Championship 6-3, 2-6, 6-4. That means the 32-year-old Evert will not reach the Open semifinals for the first time since she was 16. She said, I guess that happens when you get older. You have a few more bad days. She has won the Open 6 times.
Have you driven a Ford?
Now get low 1.9% financing or a $600 cash bonus on America's award winner, Ford Taurus, and Thunderbird, including Turbo Coupe. Also get 1.9 financing or $400 cash bonus on Escort and Tempo. Combine the cash bonus with option package discounts and save up to $1,358 on Tempo, $1,094 on Escort, $1,150 on Taurus, and $1,682 on Thunderbird Turbo Coupe. Great values at your Ford dealer now.
X-Lax presents some gentle guarantees. The warm sun, the morning air, the peace of mind that comes from X-Lax. Taken at bedtime, it's guaranteed to work gently by 8 a.m. or your money back. X-Lax, it's guaranteed.
Help and make your American dream come true.
We're the nationwide real estate company that can help make your American dream come true. Faster and easier.
The new ERA.
Post presents first-time freshness every time.
Now you can sip in the freshness with Post.
Now Post Natural Raisin Bran comes in our new Zip Pack resealable packaging for first-time freshness every time. So our plump, naturally sweet raisins stay juicy and our crisp bran flakes stay crispy.
So zip in the freshness with Post.
Enjoy first-time freshness every time with Post Natural Raisin Bran and Natural Bran Flakes in the new Zip Pack.
Pope John Paul arrives in Miami tomorrow for a 10-day pilgrimage in America. The theologically conservative Pope will be trying to get closer to American Catholics who are increasingly independent and questioning. For instance, a new CBS News New York Times poll shows that a majority of American Catholics feel the Church is out of touch with their needs, and a big majority, 59%, feel the Church should change some of its teachings to better reflect the opinions of its members. At his weekly Vatican audience today, the Pope said he is looking forward to celebrating Catholic unity along with American diversity and democracy.
It gives me great joy to undertake this visit during the celebration of the bicentennial of the American Constitution.
A lot of Americans who may not be interested in religion still have a very big interest in the Pope's trip. National correspondent Bernard Goldberg has that story.
As the Pope begins his pilgrimage to America, some Americans have already begun a pilgrimage of their own. A pilgrimage to the bank.
That's a good shot, right like that.
Entrepreneurs are in heaven, cashing in on Pope Paris. In Arizona, there's Pope corn, blessed in the West. Cowpope t-shirts, Rome Rome on the range. There are Pope masks, Pope watches, Pope plates, Pope safari hats, Pope coffee mugs, Pope bells.
He has to look like the Pope. And if you start getting a little lazy about it, you're not watching what you're doing, he starts looking like John Wayne.
There's a Pope board game called Is the Pope Catholic? There's Pope on a Rope soap, Pope scopes, and when he visits Carmel, California, where Clint Eastwood is mayor, a Pope button.
Many of the articles that are being offered right now that are just, tacky from the word go.
And what, I ask you, would the papal visit be without a Pope lawn sprinkler? Let us spray. $55.
What we've done is combine two things that have never been combined before, a human figure and a lawn sprinkler. And it just so happens that the Pope was the first one we did.
And even Las Vegas, which is not on the Pope's itinerary, is trying to cash in, an attempt to make the gamblers think they have a prayer.
I'm Gene Graytack from California. I live in Santa Ana, and I am the celebrity double for Pope John Paul II.
His wife, you'll excuse the expression.
I have to walk behind him. I just can't seem to walk alongside of him.
All this raises some serious questions. What's a nice souvenir and what's tacky exploitation? And what, for God's sake, is the Pope doing on a button wearing a Detroit Tigers baseball cap? In a tight pennant race, no less. The Pope lawn sprinkler, by the way, has been described by some critics as the most spectacularly tasteless souvenir anyone has come up with.
That's true. They didn't say it's the most tasteless. It's spectacularly tasteless.
Which
so
is
it makes it a little better.
Fabulously tasteless.
The Pope is said to have a great sense of humor. Only time will tell. Bernard Goldberg, CBS News, Miami.
And that's tonight's CBS Evening News. I'll be in Miami tomorrow for our live coverage of the Pope's arrival beginning at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. So see you tomorrow. Dan Rather. Good night.
Heartburn again.
Yeah.
You gonna sit there and suffer? Or you gonna take something?
What do you have?
Riopan Plus 2. It's double strength.
I hope it works fast.
How fast can you get to the medicine cabinet?
In lab tests, Riopan Plus 2 starts neutralizing acid in 10 seconds, and 1 teaspoon neutralizes more acid than 2 teaspoons of regular Maalox or Mylanta. That's twice as strong.
You look better.
You want to go out for a banana split?
I'm kidding.
Riopan Plus 2, the fast antacid.
The #1 hit.
How fast can Ambisol relieve toothache pain? Before you can say
Ambisol.
canker sore pain? Before you can say
Ambisol.
Ambisol relieves minor mouth pain on contact. Ambisol, liquid or gel.
You may not have thought of buying a Sears Die-Hard battery until you've had a little time alone to think about it.
Tonight, Dad raised the son's fridge. He practically lived in mine. I'd always tell him, stay away from the big 3, salt, fat, calories, and watch the cholesterol. That's what Doc always told me. Looks like he did listen.
Fleischmann's Light, 25% less salt, fat, and calories than regular margarine, and no cholesterol.
Watching out for the big 3, Dad? Yeah, I listened. Most of the time.
Fleischmann's Light.
A look at the changing face of Catholic America as the Pope's U.S. visit begins. Faith Daniels reports from Miami tomorrow on the CBS Morning News. This is CBS.
Tonight on Eyewitness News, Larry Britton will have an exclusive investigative report on a top Metro police officer who has apparently been enjoying a